Now that I have the Spring Boot CLI installed, I'd like to create a simple web application. To keep it super simple, I'm going to create a web page that just displays the current time on the web server. Each time I reload the page, I should see the date and time update. Since the Spring Boot CLI creates a command line application by default, I'll need a way to specify that I want a web application instead. Let's take a look at what options we have for the init command. So the init command can take a list of Spring Boot dependencies that you'd like to use in your project. You can see the available list by passing the -- list option to the init command. Since we want to build a web app, we'll pull in the web starter. We also want to be able to serve dynamic pages with some kind of templating system. FreeMarker seems like a good candidate for that. So we'll run the Spring command with init, call our project hello web, and then use -d to pass FreeMarker and web. So create a hello web directory with our project in it. So let's see what we get out of the box. We'll run the Maven Spring Boot run command, which will start up a web application on port 8080. Neat. So we're getting an error page for some reason. Why is that? So by default, the application doesn't handle any type of request. In order to respond to a request, we need to set up a controller. A controller lets you control what happens when a particular path is requested of your application. Let's create a controller named homepage controller with a method called index that renders a simple template. First, we want to make that class. Then we add the controller annotation to the class, which lets Spring know that it should load the class and treat it as a controller. To respond to requests for the root path, we'll add a method that is mapped to /. We'll do this by annotating a method with request mapping. And we'll set its value to a simple /. We'll call this method index. At a minimum, this method needs to return the path of a template to render. So we'll set it to its return type as string, and we'll have it return index as the template name. Next, we want to create a FreeMarker template under source main resources templates named index.ftl. For now, it can just contain some simple markup. Now let's restart our server and see if things are working correctly. Great, we're serving out what basically amounts to a static page now. Let's add the date and time to the page now. Back in the controller, we'll add a model to the signature of our method. Spring will now pass in a model that we can add attributes to, and those attributes are then available to our template. So let's add the current date. Then we update the template to render the attribute that we added. We can now kill our server with Command Control C and then restart our server. Now if we reload our page, we get a huge error. So the problem here is that it can't convert our date-like value to a string because it isn't known if it's a date. I'm going to fix this by using some free marker functions to make it render correctly and nicely. So we'll use the datetime function and use the string full format. Now if we reload our page, we get a very pretty date. And if we keep reloading it, the time has changed. Now we know the basics of creating a controller, assigning a method to a path, adding some attributes, and rendering a template.